One of the sharpest observations made by Machiavelli in The Prince is about how the power structure itself can be a factor that strengthens incompetent leaders, even in systems that seem to be designed to support competent and wise leadership. Machiavelli understood that in order to maintain power, a leader must not only rely on personal ability or wisdom, but also on the power structure surrounding them. Even in environments full of incompetence, a weak or flawed power structure can allow an incompetent leader to survive for a long time. Machiavelli observed that in many cases, incompetent leaders tend to surround themselves with individuals who are also incompetent. This is not a coincidence, but a strategy to ensure that they are not faced with threats from individuals who are more skilled or more competent than they are. By placing less capable people in key positions, incompetent leaders can maintain their control longer because there is no one strong or smart enough to challenge their power. In this sense, incompetence becomes an effective survival strategy because incompetent leaders are more likely to feel threatened by individuals who are more skilled than themselves. This phenomenon occurs not only in politics, but also in business, government, and other organizations. In many organizations, we often see how leaders who are incompetent or less capable choose to hire or promote individuals whom they believe will not challenge their authority or replace them. The decision to form teams or work groups consisting of less skilled or less experienced people can create an environment where the leader feels safer and harder to replace. Additionally, a highly centralized and well-controlled power structure also plays a significant role in ensuring the sustainability of incompetent leadership. In a highly centralized system, where all decisions are made by one individual or a small group of people, an incompetent leader can maintain their power longer because they have full control over information and decision-making processes. They can use their position to hide failures or mistakes in their management of power, and they can also exploit uncertainty or ambiguity to divert attention from their incompetence. Machiavelli refers to this as one of the crucial aspects of a successful power structure. In The Prince, he writes that an incompetent leader must be very careful in choosing their subordinates. If a leader surrounds themselves with strong or competent individuals, they risk facing challenges or even threats to their position. In contrast, a leader who is more intelligent in selecting weaker or less competent subordinates will find that they have more control and fewer threats to their power. However, a centralized power structure can also have negative long-term impacts. When an incompetent leader surrounds themselves with weaker individuals, they create a system full of incompetence, which in the end can weaken the effectiveness of the entire organization or country. Over time, this incompetence can lead to a decline in performance, public trust, and even political stability. An organization or country managed by an incompetent leader surrounded by incompetent individuals will eventually fail to grow and meet the increasingly complex challenges. Machiavelli himself understood that a wise and competent ruler must be able to build a government structure that allows for effective oversight and accountability. In an ideal situation, a good leader would select competent and talented individuals to work under them, as this would ensure that decisions are made based on in-depth knowledge and skills. However, in a world of political competition and uncertainty, a less competent leader often chooses to avoid potential threats by selecting less competent subordinates. This phenomenon not only creates a perpetual state of incompetence in government or organizations, but also results in a cascading effect, where incompetence or lack of competence becomes part of the organizational culture. For example, in many organizations, we can see how bad policies, poorly informed decisions, or repeated failures are often left without oversight or improvement because the leaders do not want to face challenges from more competent individuals. This leads to incompetence becoming a cycle that is difficult to break, because every time more capable or competent individuals try to improve the situation, they are hindered or suppressed by the existing power structure. Machiavelli also observed that a flawed power system, which focuses on personal loyalty or relationships, often results in rulers who are unable to make rational decisions based on available knowledge. Instead of selecting people based on their skills and abilities, incompetent leaders often prefer to hire or promote individuals based on personal loyalty or social connections. This creates a structure where competence and performance are no longer the main factors in decision-making, but rather who has the best relationship with the ruling leader. Overall, a centralized power structure controlled by an incompetent leader is highly vulnerable to long-term failure. Although an incompetent leader can maintain their power for a while by choosing incompetent subordinates, This ultimately undermines the effectiveness and sustainability of the organization or country. To create a more effective system, leaders must be able to avoid the tendency to surround themselves with incompetent individuals and, instead, choose people based on their ability to contribute to the collective goal. One of the most intriguing phenomena in politics and leadership is the tendency of humans to follow leaders who may not always meet the competency criteria we expect. In many cases, we often see how leaders who are less competent or even completely incompetent can gain widespread support and followers. Why does this happen? Why do we sometimes choose to follow leaders who offer simple solutions rather than those who are wiser and acknowledge the complexity of the issues at hand? Machiavelli, in his work The Prince, explains that one of the main factors influencing us to follow the wrong leader is a human need for certainty and decisiveness. In a world full of uncertainty, we tend to seek leaders who can provide clear and definite answers, even if those answers are not entirely correct or realistic. Leaders who can provide explanations that are easy to understand, even if they may be exaggerated or simplistic, are often more accepted by the public compared to those who are wiser but too cautious or hesitant in offering solutions. Leaders who offer simple answers, which may not address the core of the problem but sound convincing, can easily win public support. In this case, the belief and confidence they project are more important than the quality or depth of the reasoning behind their decisions. This is closely related to our cognitive psychology as humans. When faced with complex problems, we often feel more comfortable with leaders who offer solutions that seem certain, even though we know that the problem is much more complicated than it appears on the surface. Machiavelli also observed that leaders who can project a great deal of confidence are often more successful in maintaining power, even if they're less competent or even wrong in making decisions. Great confidence creates a perception that the leader knows what they're doing, even if in reality, they do not have a deep understanding of the situation at hand. In many cases, leaders who appear confident and project strength can overcome leaders who are more competent but unable to show the same level of decisiveness. It is important to remember that this decisiveness is not just about policies or decisions made, but also about how leaders communicate with their followers. Leaders who can speak clearly, directly, and confidently will find it easier to gain support than those who try to convey the complexities of a situation with caution and consideration. In a world full of uncertainty, this clarity provides people with a sense of safety and comfort, even if it is only temporary. There is also a social and emotional aspect that greatly influences our decisions to follow seemingly unworthy leaders. One of these aspects is what is known as the dynamics of social proof. When we see many others following someone or supporting a particular leader, we tend to feel more comfortable joining that group. This phenomenon occurs because we often seek social validation and feel safer following the crowd rather than taking the risk of following a different path. This is why, even though we may know that a leader is incompetent, we often still follow them if we see that the majority of people around us are doing the same. This dynamic plays a significant role in societies where uncertainty or crises create a sense of panic or insecurity. In such situations, we are more easily influenced by narratives that offer clear answers and seemingly simple solutions. Leaders who can communicate confidence control over a situation, even if they lack the skills or experience needed, often succeed in gaining support more than those who are truly more capable but appear uncertain or unable to provide clear solutions. This phenomenon can also be explained through a cognitive psychology concept called confirmation bias, where people tend to seek and accept information that confirms their existing views or beliefs. When a leader offers a solution that aligns with our expectations or desires, we are more likely to accept and support them, even if the solution may not be effective or realistic. This is why leaders who present appealing or popular ideas can quickly gain support, even if they lack solid evidence or policies to back up their claims. The tendency to seek simple solutions is also related to tolerance for ambiguity. Many people are uncomfortable with uncertainty and prefer leaders who give them a sense of control and clear decisions. This is one reason why leaders who speak with certainty about complex issues, without acknowledging uncertainty or gaps in their understanding, are more likely to gain support than those who are more cautious and realistic in addressing ambiguous situations. Humans tend to avoid ambiguity and prefer a world that seems more organized and understandable, even if it is only an illusion. We also often see this phenomenon in the corporate world or in politics, where leaders who can speak with great confidence and offer bold promises receive more support than those who are more cautious or realistic in explaining the existing challenges. In many cases, people are more likely to believe in promises or simple solutions, even though they know these may not deliver the expected results, because such promises provide a sense of security and clarity in a world that is often confusing. Overall, we can see that many psychological and social factors influence our decision to follow leaders who appear unworthy or less competent. Leaders who succeed in attracting attention and gaining support are those who can play these dynamics, projecting strong confidence, offering simple solutions to complex problems, and exploiting the human tendency to follow social currents. While this may not be the most effective way to solve long-term problems, in the short term, this approach can be very effective in gaining power and maintaining their position. Machiavelli, in The Prince, keenly observes that in politics and governance, manipulation tactics are often the primary tools used by leaders to maintain their power. Even incompetent leaders can often survive longer and more successfully retain power by mastering the art of manipulation and using various tactics to influence public perception and control their followers. These tactics, though not always ethical or honest, prove highly effective in a world filled with uncertainty, crises, and intense competition. Machiavelli suggests that leaders who want to maintain their positions in the long term must understand how to use various manipulation strategies, both overt and hidden. One of the most powerful tactics is to create and maintain divisions between different groups, whether within society or among internal groups in organizations or nations. Successful leaders often exploit these differences to deflect attention from their own incompetence by creating a common enemy or group to fight. This is a form of psychological manipulation that can create a strong sense of solidarity among followers, even though the enemy created may not exist at all. Incompetent leaders can use the division between us and them to maintain power by creating a clear narrative about who the enemy is, whether it's another social group, a foreign nation, or even an internal group perceived as a threat. Leaders can focus public attention on external threats and divert away from the real internal issues. For example, many leaders use nationalist rhetoric or group identity to strengthen their position, shifting public dissatisfaction with the government or leadership into forms of hatred or fear toward a particular group. This tactic has been used effectively by many leaders throughout history, both in democratic and authoritarian nations. In some cases, leaders expend more energy exacerbating social differences and creating tension between groups than actually solving the problems at hand. This is a very effective way to maintain the status quo, because while the public is divided and distracted by these differences, incompetent leaders can retain power without truly being confronted with questions about their policies or performance. Another manipulation technique used by incompetent leaders is creating or exacerbating a crisis. A crisis, whether social, economic, or even fabricated, can be used to divert attention from a leader's shortcomings and create the impression that the leader is the only one capable of facing and solving the problem. By exploiting the fear, confusion, or uncertainty generated by a crisis, leaders can consolidate their power and build their legitimacy in the eyes of the public. Often, incompetent leaders create crises to demonstrate that they are the saviors who can control the situation, even if they may not have real solutions or effective policies to address the issue. The crisis then becomes a tool to strengthen their authority and suppress opposition or criticism. In many cases, leaders who use crises in this way gain the opportunity to introduce policies that increase their control, even if those policies are actually detrimental to society in the long run. In the modern era, manipulating information and public image has become an extremely powerful tactic in maintaining power. Incompetent leaders often exploit the media, both traditional and social, to shape a narrative that favors them. Through control or influence over media, leaders can spread messages that reinforce their image as effective leaders, even though in reality, they may not have the right policies or actions to solve problems. In many cases, media manipulation is done by creating a positive image through massive media campaigns, while diverting attention from existing issues or failures. Incompetent leaders often focus on appearances and rhetoric, relying on impressive and emotional messages to create a personal connection with their followers. Although their actions or policies may fail or be ineffective, the messages conveyed to the media can be powerful enough to maintain support, at least temporarily. In addition to creating and exploiting social differences, incompetent leaders often use identity politics to strengthen their position. By identifying and prioritizing certain groups who feel marginalized or neglected, leaders can form a loyal base of support. This identity politics focuses on the feelings of groups that believe they have been marginalized and offer solutions or narratives that focus on empowering them, even if the leader does not actually intend to solve their issues. The use of marginalized or minority groups as tools to gain support is a tactic often employed in populist politics. Incompetent leaders can use these groups as symbols of their struggle, even though in practice, they do little to improve the condition of these groups. Instead of addressing deep-seated problems, the leader focuses on portraying themselves as a defender of the group in order to maintain support without actually improving the situation. Another manipulation tactic used by incompetent leaders is creating a strong emotional dependency among their followers. Incompetent leaders often realize that they can maintain their power by building deep emotional bonds with their followers. They make big promises full of hope, even though they are unable to keep them. This emotional dependency creates loyalty not based on concrete results, but on the perception that the leader is the only one who can solve the problems. Leaders who master this tactic understand that power is not only about political or administrative control, but also about emotional control. By playing on the fears, hopes, and deep needs of the people, they create a system where followers feel that they cannot act or make choices without the leader. This gives the leader enormous power, even if they lack effective policies or are incompetent in fulfilling their responsibilities. One of the greatest challenges in modern political systems and governance is creating more effective and fair ways to choose truly competent leaders. While many political systems claim to be designed to select leaders based on their abilities and qualities, the reality often differs. Many countries and organizations end up choosing incompetent leaders, or they choose leaders based on popularity or appearances that do not always reflect their capacity to lead effectively. Therefore, it is crucial to design systems that truly focus on selecting leaders with the right qualifications, not just those who can manipulate perceptions or create illusions of power. Machiavelli, although known for his pragmatic and sometimes manipulative approach to understanding power, actually suggests that a healthy governance structure requires competent and talented leaders. But how can we create a system that facilitates the selection of competent leaders and avoids those who rely only on manipulation or appearances? This is the core of this chapter. One of the first steps in creating a better system is ensuring there is clear and transparent feedback about a leader's performance. A major problem in many governments or organizations is the lack of objective feedback regarding leadership performance. Often, incompetent leaders can retain their power by deflecting attention from their failures or by suppressing criticism from their subordinates. In an ideal system, there would be mechanisms to provide honest feedback about how effective a leader is in carrying out their duties, and this should be based on actual outcomes, not just perceptions or public image. Transparency in performance is essential to ensure that the leaders chosen genuinely meet their qualifications and are able to carry out their responsibilities effectively. In a healthy system, this feedback should come from various sources, including subordinates, members of the community, and those affected by the leader's policies or actions. This objective feedback should be used to assess the leader's performance, not merely to improve their image or fix identified flaws. In this way, incompetent leaders can be recognized more quickly and replaced with more qualified individuals. A good leader selection system must also be able to reduce the influence of manipulation and image-making. Many incompetent leaders rise to power not because they have better policies or superior abilities, but because they can deceive the public with strong image, convincing appearances, and emotional rhetoric. Therefore, it is crucial that the leader selection and evaluation system emphasizes substance, not just image or persuasive speaking skills. In a better system, voters and the public as a whole should be provided with more information about the track record of the leaders being chosen. This includes information about the policies they have implemented, their impact on society, and their ability to address existing challenges. Political education and media literacy are also essential so that the public can distinguish between projected images and the reality at hand. An educated society will be better able to select leaders who are genuinely competent, not just those who speak confidently or have an impressive appearance. In addition to improving the selection system, It is also important to create educational and training programs that can help potential leaders develop the skills and leadership capacity they need to carry out their duties effectively. Many leaders are elected based on popularity or because they represent a particular group or interest, without having sufficient skills or experience to lead effectively. A better system must ensure that potential leaders have adequate training in management, evidence-based decision-making, and the ability to work within broader and more inclusive frameworks. Comprehensive leadership training should include not only the technical skills required to lead, but also the emotional and social skills that are crucial, such as empathy, effective communication, and the ability to work with various community groups. This is important so that leaders can respond to existing challenges in a wise manner, listen to diverse voices and perspectives, and make fair, evidence-based decisions. One way to ensure that competent leaders are selected and remain in their positions is by designing institutional systems that can enhance accountability. This means creating government or organizational institutions that have the ability to monitor and assess leader performance objectively. Additionally, these systems must allow for questioning of leaders' decisions, identifying errors or failures, and taking necessary actions to replace ineffective leaders. To do this, it is crucial to have institutions with the power to oversee leaders and assess their performance based on clear and measurable indicators. An effective system of checks and balances will ensure that leaders remain accountable for their decisions and that they do not abuse their power. By introducing independent oversight bodies with sufficient authority, we can reduce the risk of incompetent or unethical leaders remaining in their positions for too long. Finally, to create a truly effective system for selecting competent leaders, we need to focus on creating sustainable leadership. This means that elected leaders should not only possess good qualities when they first rise to their positions, but should also be able to grow and adapt to the changes occurring in society and their world. Good leadership is leadership that can learn from experience, be open to change, and continue to develop to address new challenges. For this, programs that support the development of leadership throughout a leader's career, whether in education, training, or direct experience, are critical. Sustainable leadership not only ensures that leaders remain effective in the long term, but also that they stay relevant to the evolving needs of society. After a long journey to understand the dynamics of power, manipulation, and incompetence in leadership, we arrive at a profound conclusion about how power systems work and how we, as individuals or societies, can face these challenges more wisely. In a world full of uncertainty and change, we need to recognize that power is not just about who holds it, but how that power is used and how society interacts with it. Machiavelli teaches us that although power is often held by those most skilled in manipulation and creating images, true wisdom is a key to building a fair and effective power system. Power that is not balanced by wisdom will only result in a fragile government, vulnerable to corruption and failure. Therefore, wisdom becomes a crucial element in ensuring that power is not abused but used for the common good. One of the greatest lessons we can take from this discussion is the importance of appreciating the complexity in leadership. Effective leadership does not come from simple answers or seemingly easy solutions. Instead, a good leader must be able to approach problems with a deep understanding, acknowledging uncertainty, and making decisions based on evidence and careful consideration. Machiavelli himself, though often seen as a pragmatist and realist, actually encourages leaders to understand that true leadership requires more than just strength and decisiveness. It also requires a wisdom to see the world in all its complexity and to strive to do the best, even when there are no perfect answers. Wisdom in leadership also means the ability to learn from experience, accept criticism, and adapt to change. A good leader is one who is aware of their limitations and is ready to continuously improve. In an increasingly complex world, the ability to acknowledge ignorance and seek better solutions is the hallmark of true strength in leadership. Moreover, wisdom is crucial in dealing with manipulation, which often occurs in a world of power. We have seen how incompetent leaders often rely on manipulation to maintain their positions, whether by creating an image of strength, playing on fear, or exacerbating social divisions. In facing this manipulation, wisdom is the key tool that allows individuals and societies to look deeper than what appears on the surface. A wise society will be able to see beyond the rhetoric and manipulation used by leaders. They will be able to assess policies and actions based on real outcomes, not just on appearances or empty promises. Therefore, It is important for us to not only rely on leaders to provide good policies, but also to develop collective wisdom that can monitor and correct mistakes that occur. One of the most effective ways to ensure that we can develop wisdom in facing power is through education and philosophical reflection. Education is not just about teaching technical skills, but also about shaping the ability to think critically, question assumptions, and view problems from multiple perspectives. In the context of leadership, this means teaching future leaders to understand that good leadership involves decision-making based not only on personal desires or ambitions, but also on broader and more sustainable considerations. Philosophical reflection is also essential to help us understand the values underlying our decisions and to evaluate our actions objectively. This is part of the self-development process that helps us become more aware of the consequences of our actions and guides us to always act with integrity and wisdom. In conclusion, we must understand that although power systems are often designed to support competent leaders, in reality, we often see power falling into the hands of the incompetent. However, by understanding the principles taught by Machiavelli and analyzing the dynamics of power with wisdom, we can begin to build a more just, transparent, and effective system for selecting truly competent leaders. This means designing systems that emphasize honest feedback, effective oversight, and mechanisms for maintaining accountability. A system that supports the growth of wise leaders will create an environment where decisions are based on deep and sustainable thinking, not just on appearances or manipulation perceptions. Ultimately, while foolishness and manipulation often gain power, wisdom and integrity remain the best hope for building a society where true quality, both in leadership and daily life, is valued more than appearances or the ability to deceive. To create a better world, we need more than just to improve existing systems. We need to develop critical thinking, wisdom, and the ability to look beyond personal interests to ensure that power is used for the common good. By acknowledging the bitter reality that power is often exercised by those most skilled in manipulation, we can begin to understand how to face it more wisely, build a more just system, and nurture leaders who are not only strong in image, but also in the ability to lead with truth and justice.